name is Thaddius Wendt. I am the CEO and one of the founding partners of Feller Wendt, and we're going to bring you today a little bit of information that has not a whole lot to do with the law. We're going to tie in a little bit with the law here, but we're going to talk about Mission Impossible, the new movie out, the new iteration of this called Dead of Reckoning Part 2 or The Final Reckoning. So a couple different names there. Today, that my guest and a good friend of mine, and also one of the owners of Feller Wendt, is Brian Hansen. Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Brian Hansen. I'm the chief training officer and also the intake manager here at the firm. So over a couple different departments. And yeah, I'm a movie buff. Love going to movies. Love watching movies. So I was excited to be part of the podcast where we can discuss one of my favorite movie franchises of all time and find, like Thaddius said, a very narrow way to tie that back into the law. So yeah, excited to be here.
Let me tell you why I brought Brian on for this too. So a whole host of reasons, but I don't know if, like the rest of you guys, you have some friends that when you ask them about a movie, you're like, if they liked it, you're probably not going. Brian's the opposite of that. Usually when he gives me a movie review, he's my friend that I'm like, yeah, okay. Every time he's told me something about a movie, told me whether it was worth watching or not, he's been dead on. More importantly, when he's told me I shouldn't watch a movie, if I haven't listened to him and tried to watch it, I was like, why didn't I just listen to him and save myself a couple hours there? So he's my guy when it comes to movie reviews. And I thought, you know what, let's get him to come in and talk about Mission Impossible. I know he's got some love for the action spy adventure movies anyway. And so he'll give us some good insight on this. I am going to ask you a couple questions, O'Brien, as we go along.
Okay.
Kind of steer our conversation and just kind of answer as you want on this. So let's get right into it. And so first things here, I want to start off with the big stuff. I mean, these movies are all about stunts and spectacles and all that kind of stuff. So Tom Cruise is well known. I think most folks that watch this, listen to it, go to the movies know that Tom's big thing is he wants to actually do the stunts himself. I don't think he does all of them, but a lot of them, especially the really big ones. So in The Final Reckoning, he doesn't skimp on any of the stunts at all. There's a couple that I can think of, but I want to get your thoughts on this. There's one, as I recall, where he's doing a bunch of stunts on a plane and the landing gear and the wing. He's crawling all over this thing. And then the other one, too, is the submarine stunt. So let's just kind of talk about the plane first. And just, I guess, all of them, really. What are your thoughts on Tom Cruise's, commitment to doing the stunts himself? How do you think that kind of ties in with the stunts? Does it add to it, take away from it? What do you think?
Well, and we should say up top, a spoiler warning, because
good.
we will be talking about big time spoilers in The Final Reckoning and any of the Mission Impossible movies. So if you haven't seen the first one, came out in 1996, you can't blame us for that. But the most recent one, please don't listen if you don't want to have the movie spoiled for you. So to get to your question, Tom Cruise is the actor that is going to save and feels like saving the movie-going experience. It feels like the theaters, as far as the amount of people going to theaters, is less and less. Oftentimes we get, the superhero movies, which I also happen to love, but at the same time, sometimes they can feel pretty fake. You can see the seams with all the CGI. And what Tom Cruise does that I love is practical stunts. He's filming on location. He's not in front of a green screen. In Top Gun Maverick, he's flying those planes, or at least with people who are flying the planes. And it definitely adds to the realness of the movies, which I love. This movie in particular is the highest of highs in all of the Mission Impossible franchises, in my opinion. The two stunts you mentioned, again, were just incredible. When he was on the plane, I literally was like, how are they doing this? And you knew it was him. You can literally see the skin on his face, like peeling back, and his mouth getting all big as the wind is rushing through his body. but it's one of those things where I'm sure you can go watch it on YouTube, but how they film that, I don't know. And it makes for an experience that's just like nothing else in the movies, because you literally think in your head like, he could die doing this. Same thing happened with the last one with the motorcycle stunt off the cliff. And I did see the making of that. I mean, he's doing 10 jumps a day just so they can film it and get it just right. So the fact that he's willing to do it, risk his body at 60, what is he, 63, something like that. He's like 62 years old.
He looks better than me. I'm 50.
And he is, yeah, it's incredible what he puts his body through and is willing to do for my entertainment, which I appreciate. So the plane scene at the end of this movie is, in my mind, probably the most exciting stunt in all of Mission Impossible. I was gripping the chair. I, again, couldn't figure out how they did it, and felt like he was risking his life for my entertainment. So I loved it.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And just kind of to piggyback off of that, I mean, I think for me, there's been debate about whether or not, he's doing it for his own kind of, I guess, self-gratification and, nihilistic endeavors or whatever it is, and ego. But for me, I love it because I'm like you. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I guess I didn't even think about how they did it. I just thought, my gosh, if he lets go, he's dead. like, like he's really on this airplane. And you're right. I distinctly remember there was a scene, and we won't try to completely spoil it for everybody, but there is a scene where you clearly see like the wind he's going so fast that his cheek is all deformed. It's like flapping in the wind. If you've ever hung your head out the car or whatever and got the wind just kind of rippling your skin, that clearly is there. So it's legit. It's real. And it's kind of cool in the face of all the modern AI, CG, all that kind of stuff, to have somebody that's still committed to doing his own stunts, right? I am going to disagree with you on one point. I actually thought, for me, the most intense action scene was the submarine scene. And maybe that's because of my own phobias. My biggest phobia is to be, buried underground in a pine box and I can't move and I slowly suffocate to death. So any of the breathing stuff gets to me, but man, that's a pretty incredible scene too. Talk a little bit about that. How'd that impact you?
Well, what stood out to me, a couple of things stood out to me about the submarine, which you're right. It's incredible. Number one is there was like no music, nothing. It's just silent. And so that added to the dread of it. Like, he's going through this submarine that's already been sunk. Half of it's filled with water. There's dead bodies. There's torpedoes everywhere in one of the rooms. And it's actually a pretty long scene. It takes a while for him to get where he needs to go, to get the source code and everything else. And of course he can't get out, and he has to take off his suit, which is a state of the art, never been tested before suit because it's a Mission Impossible movie. And I remember actually turning to my wife, who I was watching the movie with, and I was like, is it hot in here? And she was like, no, it feels fine. And I was like sweating through the back of my shirt just watching that scene, because it is one of those things like, he's going to make it. But it's the sense of dread, the lack of music actually added to the intensity for me. You just hear a few sound effects and just how long it took him to finally get out of there. And then he does a great job. Maybe he wasn't acting, because, they talk about how when you rush up from that deep of water, I think it was 500 feet, and you go to the surface, if you don't breathe out, your lungs will burst or something along those lines, and you'll get the bends, and they have to get him into a decompression chamber as soon as possible. But, his body's all convulsing, and I'm like, part of me is like, I wonder if this is just really what he's going through, or if he's acting. Again, it's one of those things where you don't know how they do it, but it looks real, because for the most part, they didn't go to the bottom of the ocean, I don't think. Right. But nothing would surprise me with Tom Cruise and how far he's willing to go. So awesome scene.
I think there's definitely some probably safety lines that they draw on the sand there on that. But I thought also the cold water, it looked like they were clearly filming in some pretty cold water, right?
Well, they said it was Mission Impossible 6 or so, the one where he has to go down that tube, and he's grabbing a key card out of it's like a swirling water. They said he set the Guinness Book World Record for, at least an actor, he held his breath for like 6.5 minutes for that scene. That's and just trained how to do it. I mean,
Huh.
he has more time on his hands than maybe some of us, but still, the fact that he's willing to go to those lengths
Uh,
shows the dedication.
hey, job's a job, right?
Yeah.
Great. So let's pivot a little bit and talk kind of about one of the core, I guess, messages in the movie, as I see it anyway, is just kind of the resilience of the team and of Ethan, Tom Cruise's character, and then just overcoming challenge after challenge. I mean, it's like this guy doesn't ever really get any rest, right? And this is a short period of time too. Like I think the last what 4, 5, 6, 7 are all within like a 1 or 2 year period of time,
Yeah, I
maybe
mean,
even
this one for the
shorter.
last one is probably just a couple
Just
months, I think is
yeah.
what they said, and
So not a lot of breaks. So and a lot of resiliency, and then just overcoming some challenges. So kind of thinking about that though, question I have for you here is, Ethan Hunt ends up confronting some formidable obstacles, a couple that we've already talked about, and through that he showcases some unwavering determination and resilience. Um, Tie that in a little bit to what we do here at Feller and Wendt. We haven't told, our audience yet what it is that we do. So talk a little bit about that, and then how do we kind of overcome and how are our teams resilient with what they do for our clients?
yeah, so we do personal injury law. It's basically the only area of law that we practice at the moment, and it's something that over the last 15 plus years we've gotten very good at. But that doesn't mean that we've seen every scenario and just can ease our way through it. The cool thing about the law is no two cases are alike. In fact, I tell that to clients all the time. Don't compare your case to another case because your facts are going to be different, your injuries are different. Everything is, even little things can make a big difference in a case. And so I think we're good at navigating how to capitalize on those differences and make sure that no matter what kind of case a client has, we can get the best result for them. And just like in the movie, when all these little things go wrong, because they do, we certainly have a game plan, but you have to be able to adjust the game plan on the fly because you'll find out little facts about your case that may, affect the outcome or affect what the outcome could be. And you've got to be able to quickly navigate those. And so we do a good job at that. We can advise our clients on how to navigate their case, and when little things come up, quickly adjust on the fly so that we can get an awesome result for clients.
Yeah, I love it. I tell a lot of the staff, you've heard it a ton of times, but it's what I love about our job is that we're David versus Goliath. And I think that Ethan Hunt and his group, it's the same thing. They're not only are they David, but then they can't even say who they really are, and they'll be disavowed if they even try to say that they work for the United States or whatever government. So they're just kind of this fringe operative group. Sometimes it feels that way for us. It's just us fighting against everybody else. We have to fight against our competitors. There's not a lot of plaintiff attorneys that will walk side by side with us and fight the insurance companies, but then the insurance companies themselves are just, I mean, they have some of the deepest pockets in the world. And it's not just us, it's our clients, right? I mean, they're injured, and because of nothing that they've done wrong, they all of a sudden find themselves being David and having to fight Goliath. And it's nice to be able to step up right alongside them and become that David with them and fight those guys. And I like also what you said too, is it's always shifting. Everything we do, every case is different. I tell staff all the time, you'll never be bored at Feller and Wendt.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for our clients, they'll never be bored either for different reasons, but we're able to help walk them through that. And so I think that's really good perspective. Kind of a follow-up question on that, and I don't want to spend too much time on Feller and Wendt, get back to the movie, but how, Brian, do you assist your clients in navigating some of the challenges that you talked about to achieve justice and get them the full recovery that they deserve?
Well, one thing I tell clients or potential clients when I meet with them is let us take as much off your plate as possible and you focus on getting better. And so that's the goal, is to walk them through the things I need them to do, but let me take on the rest. As long as you give me the information I need, I can handle the rest and do all the little things behind the scenes. I can communicate with the insurance company. We get all the information from them on policy limits and things like that that we have to know. We help guide them through the medical care process. You know, I can't do that for them, so but I walk them through it, tell them, here's what we need to do. Here's the folks that you should go see, and then get that process started for them so they're not stressed about it. So that is my goal, is to take as much off their plate as possible. They're already in a stressful situation. They're worried about bills. They're worried about their pain. They're worried about their car getting fixed. All of those things are stuff that we can take off their plate while they focus on just getting back to who they were before a car accident, for example. Yeah.
Awesome. Love it. Let's get back to the movie. Character arcs and some of the emotionally impacting stuff. And again, I'm glad, I totally meant to give everybody spoiler alert, and I'm glad that you remembered to do that, because we're really going to get into some spoiler alerts now. Let's just hit the big one. Luther, popular character throughout almost the entire series. I don't think he's in the first couple, right?
I think he's. I know he's in 1, and I know he's in 3 through this one. The only one I couldn't remember off the top of my head was 2.
Okay,
which is kind of the funkiest one with the motorcycle sword battle and weird stuff like that. But not that I didn't enjoy it still, but he might be in all of them. I should have looked that up.
He may be. I meant to look that up too, and I for some reason I'm like you. I couldn't even remember him being in 1. But anyway, he's a beloved character. I've loved kind of watching him be a little bit older than me every time I watch a movie. And we see that in this movie too. He's definitely older, and it looks like he's having some health issues. I wondered if those were actually real health
I know.
issues.
You never know.
Separate question. Yeah, I don't know. But this character from present, right? Well, and I guess I do have some notes here that says he was present since the very beginning, but he stirs a lot of strong reactions and emotions, and I think for most people, it's the the endearment that they have to him. How do you feel his loss? And that's the spoiler here. We lose him in this movie, and it looks like it's not a fake loss. Like, it's a legit loss, right? How does that affect the narrative and for you, the emotional depth of the film itself?
Well, it was powerful. I mean, first of all, something about me, I'm an emotional person. I mean, I get it. My parents, my mom cries when the leaves fall, and my dad cries during Lassie reruns. So that'll give you an idea what I was blessed with as far as the emotional stability. But definitely cried in the movie. There's been close calls with a lot of these main characters, and he's, Ethan's best friend. Ethan lives a pretty lonely life if you sit and think about it. He literally had to, abandon his relationship with his wife in one of the movies because it puts her in danger, and so his family is his team at this point, and Luther's been with him the longest. So when they had to say goodbye to each other, and Ethan knew he couldn't save him, it was it definitely elicited some powerful emotions. I thought that scene itself was really well done, how they said goodbye to each other, and it just seemed real within their characters. I didn't love how it wasn't talked about more with the group. Like, Benji at least looks at him when they talk about how he had built these, the tool that was able to trap the AI and some things like that. But I kind of wanted a little more from them, like, let's take a moment to pour one out for Luther. But the moment itself was sad, and definitely added a lot of stakes to the movie, and probably a good decision story-wise for kind of a closing chapter to have to lose a main character like that.
Yeah, it was tough. I would agree with that. I still think there's a little bit of room that maybe he's not dead. What do you think?
Yeah, all they showed was the blasts, but I don't know. Yeah, I kind of hope they don't. It's been one of my issues with, like, the Marvel movies, is bringing no one can die kind of thing, because there's a multiverse now.
Right.
So it'd be like if they tried to bring back Iron Man. It's like, nope, that would just destroy the emotional impact that it had on me if I know the stakes aren't real. So I think he is gone, and I don't think they'd bring him back even if they do more movies.
I'm just always suspicious, because I think of the first season of Squid Games, There was a scene where they cut away as somebody's being shot, and I thought to myself, they cut away because he's not dead, and he wasn't. Hopefully, I didn't spoiler alert that for anybody who hasn't seen Squid Games yet. But I did. It's kind of the same. I had the same thought because they cut away and they don't really show the
Just blast.
explosion. You just kind of see the smoke billowing out and you hear it and kind of the after effects. So anyway,
Let's pray they don't like somehow in
keep bringing
another
it back
movie.
all the time.
Well, they show his body and then rip it off, and it was the mask or something. It's like,
Yeah,
no,
somebody else in
okay,
there.
we've done enough.
Good point. They do that a lot, don't you think? There's a lot of that going on. Let's see. Ethan Hunt's journey seems to culminate in this installment here. Do you agree? You think it's finished, or do you think there's more? And do you want to see more?
I will definitely be there opening weekend if there's more. Part of me hopes it's kind of done because this was such a, I guess, a good finale. And what are they going to do without Luther? I mean, the guy is the tech genius of the
Right.
group. So I think it's done, but money speaks in Hollywood, especially. And if they feel like this one does well financially, I could see him bringing him back in for a fourth or fifth, or maybe it goes on to a different character and the IMF is still involved, but it's not Ethan Hunt,
Yeah, maybe
which
some
would also be hard to
spin-offs or
do. You know, it's like he is Mission Impossible, and all the stunts and stuff. I just don't think they'd be the same without him being involved and
Yeah.
all the practical effects of it.
I think I'm conflicted on the old characters. I kind of want it to be done, but then I'm really intrigued with the new characters. Like I like the new gal that's
Grace,
not Grace. Who's the other gal
Oh.
that's like the French karate expert
the French woman,
from the movie before? She was a kind of a villain, and then
Ilsa
she
Faust?
carries over.
she
No, not Ilsa. She's a Latina. I know that. I did a little bit of research on just her in real life. She's the one that gets stabbed by who's the main villain? What's his name? Gabriel. So Gabriel in the movie before in the train says you're going to betray us and stabs her.
She's French.
Oh,
Not
she's
that.
French.
Yeah.
Well, see,
In fact, her name is Paris in the movie.
Okay. Well, there we go.
But yeah,
That's who it is. See,
She
you know all this better than I do.
Yeah.
For some reason, I must have been researching somebody else, and I thought it was a Latina character, or in real life. But you're saying French, okay?
in the movie she's French.
Okay, but her, and then the other guy, the younger guy, that's now kind of he
Yeah.
was with the CIA, I
I think
think,
so.
and now it looks like he's part of the IMF team, right? Especially that final scene there. So that makes me kind of interested and intrigued. But I do think it's time for a break.
Yeah.
Like even like the Superman series, I love it, and I'm glad they took a big long break, and I am excited for the new one. So we'll have to see how that goes.
Yeah.
All right. Similar to the intrigue surrounding the 007 franchise, do you think there's any room for a replacement?
Yeah, that's where it's, I know they're making more 007 movies, but James Bond died in the last movie. Like, you can't just have a new person show up and their name's James Bond. Like, to me at least, that doesn't make sense. So if they do it, they can't have someone, just a different actor, play Ethan Hunt. To me, they've got to just somehow bring a new actor in that's as good as Ethan.
A new
Hunt.
IMF.
Yeah, he's
right?
the new Wonderkind and can do anything.
Yeah.
So
that's what makes me wonder, kind of with the way they ended it, and some of the folks there is, Benji is, and then some of the new ones, are they going to break off and create a new, IMF, and then you'll have some cameo appearances with Ethan coming in every now and then or something. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about just some of the themes and technology too. I want to talk a little bit about that. It's a big thing that folks are talking about. It's big in our industry as well. But the film really leans into this AI antagonist known as the Entity. How effectively do you think the movie addresses some of the contemporary concerns and popular concerns about artificial intelligence and, any of the potential threats that come from that?
So, yeah, we've talked about some of my favorite parts of the movie. This will be more on the opposite end. I don't love they definitely portray the AI in like one of the worst cases imaginable, right? It takes over all of the nukes of the
Skynet
entire
all
world,
over again.
and yeah, it shoots all the nukes off at each other and saves itself in a hidden bunker, and then it will. I don't know what its plan is because everyone's gonna die, but maybe with the remaining people that somehow live, it starts. That's what's confusing about the movie. I don't get its motivations.
Right.
I don't get. You don't really, you can't meet the AI other than through this blue light and a voice. And at one point,
Mm-hmm.
Ethan Hunt goes into like this coffin-like thing and sees it, and it talks to him. I don't love the entity. It just doesn't feel scary enough to me. There's a difference between something you can't really see versus like the Terminator
Yeah.
that you
Right.
can't see and you're terrified of.
Yep.
And so, they tried to bring this Gabriel character in as he's like doing the entity's will at least in the last movie. And then in this movie, he wants to control the entity with all, to have all power.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he does a good job as a villain, but the entity itself is like, it's just hard to understand it or explain it, which makes it a weaker quote unquote villain. But yeah, it is interesting because I've said this to you before, because we use AI and as much as we can and try to help us be efficient, like I think everyone in every industry is doing right now. But I always say, does anybody ever watch a movie to see what's coming down the road, just in case they're right? And this would be like the worst case scenario where a powerful AI that was built by a country trying to control everything goes rogue, and then we're all screwed. So that's just try not to think about it in real terms.
Yeah.
But for the movie, it was all right.
That's interesting. I know I'm a little torn on it. I didn't hate the antagonist, the AI entity. I thought it was I actually kind of I thought they did a decent job kind of trying to think through um how something like that might become sentient, and then once it does, like how it would protect itself without us just like pulling the plug all over.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting how they did that, but you're right. I mean, I think it's such a big topic. It's hard. It's one of those things you're not going to make everybody happy about it. Plus, there's a lot of confusion about it, so you're going to just inherently by making it a central part of your movie inject some confusion anyway.
Yeah.
Is the way I kind of felt about it, but I wasn't off put by it. I thought it was kind of interesting, and we're seeing a lot of movies, a lot of books written about this, and it's kind of crazy because for me anyway, I'm older than you, but I love sci-fi.
Mm.
I love these types of spy thrillers, and it's funny that the authors and the producers of these kinds of things have really been addressing the AI thing for a couple decades already.
Yep.
And it's I think what we're dealing with AI, you talked about it in our work, is like they're prophetic almost. Like the stuff that they said it could do, we were like, no,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen until like, I don't know,
Work both
another 1,000 years or something. And it's here. Like it's here. We've got, autonomously driving cars that are to a certain extent using some AI. And then, just even our work product, I use it daily. It's insane. I didn't ask. I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but Angela Bassett, what do you think about her as a president? And whenever I think of the AI, I think war games. And how do you think about them dealing with the nuclear holocaust and the decision she had to make?
First of all, love Angela Bassett.
So good.
She brings like just confidence and power and
Yeah, I kind of want her to run
competence.
like right now for
Yeah.
president.
Like there's just something about her presence that I could totally see her being a president type figure. But she again, this goes back to like there were some things about the movie I was just like, all right, I'll just buy in. There's like a countdown clock, right? They're all in this bunker, all the main cabinet members, and it's counting down until apparently they can guess to the minute or second even when the AI will have complete control of all the nukes in the world and then launch them all at each other. And they just kind of say that and we go along with it. Okay, that's fine. So she has to decide. I think the United States is the last country that still has control of their nukes, and she has to decide: am I going to like preemptively strike against, I guess, the AI or the rest of the worworld,
Or it's
or
like
all their sites, maybe.
they're like control centers.
Okay, that's
To
that was probably the best.
take that away from the AI.
And so she has to decide to do that or not, and ultimately puts her trust in our good friend Ethan Hunt, which is a good idea. And at the last minute decides against launching a nuclear strike against basically the rest of the world in an effort to try to beat the AI. And then Ethan Hunt comes through, and obviously billions are saved. But
Yeah.
it is as far as a movie plot goes, the stakes couldn't be higher for anything than this, which is why it makes for a good finale.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit just within our industry. AI's there. Tell the folks that are listening, how do we use AI to do what we do? And then how about defense too? Like, what are they doing with AI, or are they using it at all? And who is defense?
Yeah, so defense is the insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
99 times out of 100 for us. I mean, that's where who we're targeting, who has the funds to pay our clients, and they've been using AI for years. They have programs that when you send a demand into them, they'll submit it into the program, it'll break it down, it'll look for specific things that it's looking for and spit out a number more or less to them on what they think the case is worth based on all of their internal data. And so we've had to combat that part for years just on our own, and trying to know what it's looking for.
Well, and part of that is because it's not just AI. Colossus is one of the systems you're talking about, and it's the insurance defense group is injecting certain strict parameters that aren't really fair. Let's be honest. I mean, we just posted a viral video from Senator Howley that talked about how unfair the insurance companies are and how they change those parameters, not only with the AI, but just even with their own adjusters, and making them change their evaluations and reduce the value and so on and so forth. So there's those things that are
it's built specifically for them to protect them.
To protect that, exactly.
Minimize,
protect those profits.
Yeah, minimize what they have to pay out, and tries to do it in an algorithm. And so, we're obviously trying to beat that and appeal to it at the same time. I know what it likes and doesn't like. So that's why when I'm guiding my clients, I tell them, here's some things you need to do because it'll increase the chances of us having a successful case. On our end, and this has just been in the last year, really. Hard to keep track of time, but feels like it's only been in the last year that we've really started using AI, whether it's, to help us more quickly build out structure of our firm. We can plug in things into Chat GPT and say, build me a process or a procedure manual on this specific subject. Right. And then it gives us an outline that we can then work from. And that's the key to AI is it definitely can save time. If it makes us more efficient and saves time, we want to use it, but it doesn't take away from people, and that we have to be the ones to take what it spits out and then make sure it's okay and right. And there's certainly corrections that need to be made all the time.
Right.
So whether it's from those things, just making us more efficient in demand writing and
So real quick, are your teams just punching data in, medical records, that kind of stuff, and getting the demand kicked out, or
nope?
What's that look like?
It's still very much go in and do it ourselves with demand, or sorry, with the AI kind of supplementing those things. So we have
it's just one of the tools that your teams are using in helping you get some good resolutions for your clients.
Yeah, it may help me build out a medical chronology, but then I have to go in and correct it.
Gotcha.
And that's the problem with AI. We were talking this morning about how it hallucinates, is what at least the industry calls it, where it just makes stuff up sometimes and it comes out of nowhere. And so if you're not on top of things, it's more of a hindrance than a help. So we've been cautiously moving forward with it and using it when it's a benefit and avoiding it when it's a hindrance.
Gotcha. Awesome. Let's get back to the movie again, talk a little bit about some of the franchise legacy and fan service. Some critics have mentioned that the film leans heavily into fan service. Do you think that that approach? I mean, I kind of agree. I guess so. First, do you agree that it does lean into fan service? And if so, do you think that approach does it detract from the movie and the storytelling, or is it something that a franchise like this should do for its fan base?
I mostly like fan service. I guess if it's done right, I'll give an example of where I didn't like it in this movie in just a second. But overall, I thought it was great. The opening intro scene shows like all of these clips from the old movies, and it was kind of fun just to watch. I mean, it goes fast,
Mhm.
but you think Tom Cruise hasn't aged, and then you see him in the 1996, and it's like
Right.
actually he looks old. Somehow he's older, but he doesn't look older because he's
Hmm.
still somehow 62. It looks like that, but the idea that we get to see all that. I love that stuff because I've loved the franchise, and I consider this probably be the finale,
Hmm.
and it definitely brings that nostalgia factor. There were a few things like the William Lunlow, I think it's Donlow, William Donlow character. He's the programmer in the very first movie when they drop down from above and he's almost touching the floor, and so he's that programmer, and you see him in a flashback in this movie and some of those things. And then he shows up in the movie and he's got a big beard. And you find out that ever since that happened and this secret thing up, they blamed him for getting broken into. And so they shipped him to like Greenland, or no, it was somewhere in the Bering Sea and
Yeah,
up by Alaska. And anyway, I thought that was great. In fact,
me too.
his character was awesome. His wife was awesome and hilarious.
Love the tie-in with a knife.
Yep.
Super
And how
cool.
they tied that all together, and he almost like becomes part of the team for the last little bit, which I thought was fun.
Yeah.
There was another one where they tried to like pigeonhole a character. I think we met in the last movie. His name's Briggs, but he's like with the CIA,
Mm.
and you find out that his father was John Voight's character in the very first movie and turned out to be the bad guy. And I was like, this is kind of unnecessary. It didn't really pay off in any way. Like Ethan Hunt at one point tells him like the AI, wants you to hate me and it wants you to go after me. It's counting on it. So we have to do the opposite to beat
Right.
the AI. We have to do the opposite of what's expected, kind of thing. And it never really comes to fruition until like the very end after everything's done. And then he like points the gun at Ethan, and I'm like, he's not going to shoot him. Like, we already have been through all the most intense parts of the movie. And then he hands the gun over to him and they shake hands.
Yeah.
And I was like, that didn't really pay off, or was that's the kind of fan service that's like, this isn't necessary. I don't care that that's potentially this bad guy's son,
Right.
especially when it happened 30 years ago.
Right.
So it's that part was one of them that I was just like, we didn't need this one.
It felt like they were probably had more about that in the original script, and then with time and all that, had to kind
Couldn't
of
get it all in.
pare that down a little bit. But anyway, kind of interesting. Um, yeah, let's talk just a little bit about some of the fan service then. And I'm going to ask a couple questions just about appropriateness of the film too for younger folks. But just thinking of fan service, the sexual and suggestive comments or content. Did you think that was there? Was it necessary if you thought it was there? Like how'd you feel about all that?
I thought there was virtually nothing in this movie.
Yeah.
And there's been some, I mean, Mission Impossible's kind of a sexy franchise at times. I mean, there's
Mhm.
definitely, you see plenty of Tom Cruise in his boxer briefs in this one. So there's that. Um, but, he doesn't really have this Grace character. It's kind of a love interest, but you never, like, she saves him at one point and is in the decompression tent, but she's really saving his life. They don't really do anything. So it's always kind of nebulous on that stuff. Yeah, I didn't think there was
Yeah.
much of anything
It's
in it.
not terribly in your face, but it did kind of strike me as interesting. My 14-year-old said to me after the movie, he was like, "Dad, I'm confused. How come Ethan always has like really hot girls that seem to really like him? And there's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, but he
And it's
never
because we
has
just
a
watched like 3 or
relationship.
4
Yeah.
movies."
Even Ilsa Faust from the
He was a
movies
little
before.
confused about the wife that was married to another guy.
Oh yeah.
confusing. I had to kind of walk them through that.
Yeah.
So there's some of that, but I agree. It's not too bad, and I don't think they're kind of leaning in too much into fan service on that. You've already talked about this. There's a lot of nostalgic references, and we're going to talk a little bit in Easter eggs. I'm not going to go there right now with you. And then a lot of the character interactions and dynamics you already talked about too. So there's a lot of that there, but I think, and you kind of already answered this, but I think they do a good job leaning into the fan service, and you have to. I mean, it's the what is it, the seventh movie in the franchise, the eighth now. So I thought they did a good job of kind of going back and tying it into the future and did a real good job. I think 007 does a pretty good job of that too, those types of franchises. So it was good. Let's talk just a little bit here. There's a lot of callbacks to earlier films. I just mentioned that. Um, if somebody's listening to this and they haven't seen the other films, how do you feel about this film as a standalone? Is it accessible to audience members like that?
I think so. You'll definitely be entertained, even if you haven't seen the other movies. And this is like a direct sequel. This is part two of a two-part movie, so to speak. But even not seeing that, they get you up to speed. I mean, we learned about the entity in the last movie, and a lot of the characters are still in this movie, obviously. But they do I think, for people who saw that, maybe frustratingly tell you all about the entity again, and like, here's what the entity does. Here's what his motivation is. Here's why it's a major issue for the rest of the world. So even not seeing that movie, I think you'd be okay. With some of the other references, you would probably be a little lost, but it shouldn't detract from the story. Like my wife has probably seen all the movies, but doesn't remember them. And, I think they reference the rabbit foot, which is in Mission Impossible 3,
Right.
and try to tie that the source code actually came from this mysterious MacGuffin from that movie. But they,
Wasn't a chemical weapon. It was
yeah, it
the
was
code.
the code for the AI. And she was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's from the third one." And she's like, "Okay, that's fine. It doesn't help or hinder necessarily." But yeah, I think you'll be entertained regardless with just the two scenes we talked
I think
about.
even the Dunlow,
Yeah,
scene you could, because they do enough of the flash.
they show the flashback and
Some of the cuts to the previous movies. They did, I thought, a really exceptional job with that. Um, let's see here. The movies received some mixed reviews. I myself, before I went and watched it, I read a review that was really disheartening and talked about how dark and bleak it was, and I was like, "Oh, man, that stinks. Maybe I'll wait until this thing comes out." And then I happened to read another review that said it was the best movie in the franchise, and I gotta be honest, I probably agree with that. I think it's the best one, at least in my opinion, and I'm glad I read that because then I did make sure to go watch it on opening weekend, and, it was fantastic, at least for me. But for you, what do you think? There's definitely this mixed bag of opinions. There's not a whole lot in the middle that I could read or find. What do
yeah,
you think is contributing to that?
I think it has, like I said, some of the highest highs in the whole franchise. The two set pieces, action sequences, I think are as good as it gets. And then there's some of the storytelling that I think is on the weaker end that we talked about. Um, I still don't. I don't get how they were able to calculate to the exact second how long it would take, but they don't know how to beat the entity. It didn't make sense that they um, had to trap it in this device when they had a poison pill already that they could put into the source code. Um, why was Ethan the only person on Earth that could do this? I kept thinking that, like, it'd be really nice if Ethan had a full team with him to go down to this submarine and recover this. Like, why is he the only one that could do
And if I'm the
what they're at?
president, I'm gonna have a plan B, C, D, E.
Yeah, they never
For the end of the
explained. Like,
world.
Gabriel wants to control it and take over.
Yeah.
It didn't explain how he would be able to do that if he had the source code with the so there were a lot of things that were confusing and didn't make sense to me compared to some of the old movies. So I'd put it towards the middle probably, but man, those highs definitely made it worth it. Like when I left, that's all I thought about was like, what did I just watch? That was incredible.
That's how I felt.
And then, yeah, the 2 or 3 days behind, you're like, especially when you asked me, let's talk about the movie, I kept thinking like, some of these things don't make sense, but
Yeah,
you
that's
kind of live with it.
I should have just waited until after you watched because that probably made you hypercritical of it too. I do just hearing you talk about it. I wonder if one of the reason for the differences is that I've got again friends of mine who they go and even my in-laws they're notorious for this and I love you guys, but if it's not absolutely realistic in their mind anyway, doesn't always have to be really realistic, but in their mind, it's just a dumb movie. And so for me, I deal with real world battles all the time. I want to go in, shut my brain off,
Yeah.
and just, pretty much be entertained. And I'm willing to accept a level of a lack of reality. So I think, though, if you're that kind of person that needs reality, wants a really complicated but realistic story, this is going to be, you're not going to love it as much as folks that are willing to just go in and say, I just want to have some fun.
I think it's impossible not to at least be entertained. Like the person who wrote the really bad review, even them, I bet, said something along the lines of, but the two main action sequences were insane. That was a little surprising to me as well. Again, those are the two of the highest highs, but there was less action than some of the other movies where it just seems like you're going from one set piece to the next one. And this one had, some gunfights and you definitely got Tom Cruise running in London.
My kids and I see every Tom Cruise movie in the theater. We literally sit in our chairs and hit a run.
So there was some of that, but there were less big action sequences than some of the, certainly the last like two or three movies. But overall, still, wouldn't miss these for anything.
So I read that the film had some substantial budget issues and faced production delays as well. Do you think that any of those factors contributed to the final production and some of the maybe lended to some of the criticisms that you have about the movie?
I would guess so. I know at one point they were going to do one big movie, and then they divided it into two.
Yeah, I don't know how they ever thought they could do it.
And yeah, and so that adds a lot of maybe editing issues potentially that they couldn't tie some plots together. I mentioned the one with the plot with Briggs and Ethan Hunt, how nothing really happens on that, even though they make a big deal out of it at the middle of the movie. And then at the very, very tail end, you see like a 10-second scene. So I think that probably does play a role in trying to keep the story tight and together. But overall, still,
Yeah,
enthusiastically endorse everyone to see it in movies. I mean,
go to the theater.
that's why Tom Cruise, welcomes you when it starts the movie out, because seeing this on a screen, your iPad is not going to be the same as seeing it in the biggest screen possible.
To your point too about the submarine scene, I got to be honest, it was so intense. I didn't realize they weren't playing music until you said that. But I do know that there is a point in that scene where the bass hits and I
rolling
felt it
over.
in my chest.
Yeah.
Like, so I think don't just go to a theater, go to a good theater. It's
Yeah.
got a great sound system because you really feel it. And again, you're not going to get that on your iPad, right? You're going to miss that element of it. Let me, we're kind of getting towards the end of time here on this. So let me go through a couple of these rather quickly. Ethan Hunt's missions are deeply personal. We know that they rely on trust and the support of his team. Similarly, at Feller and Wendt, one of our big things is building trust with our clients. That's paramount. How do you, as a lawyer at Feller and Wendt, one of the owners, how do you foster trust or strong attorney-client relationships to support individuals during their recovery journey?
So, I mean, the biggest thing clients want is communication. And it's always the biggest complaint against attorneys is lack of communication. So that's how I build the trust with our clients is I communicate with them. As attorneys, we are definitely busy. I can't necessarily be the person that calls them every time there's an update, but I want to be available anytime they need an update from me and talk to them and walk them through it. And as they're stressed about certain things, Be the one that's available. Um, so that is how we build a strong relationship, is just that communication and being available when our clients need us. There's a quote from a movie that it's actually right before Luther dies that they talk about. It's like an IMF motto, I guess. I don't necessarily remember it from the previous movies. It could have been there, but they say, "We live and fight in the shadows for those we hold close and for those we'll never meet."
I love it.
And it's an awesome encapsulation of what IMF does. No one knows who these people are, regular everyday people. Even most people in the government doesn't know who the IMF is. And they do it for those they hold close, which certainly Ethan shows in the movie, and for those that they never meet because they're saving lives that they never meet. And certainly not to the extent of we're world saving as attorneys. I like that, for us as a firm, we definitely want to fight in the shadows. They're not going to see all the work we're doing to try to fight the insurance company. Our own clients don't see all of that work. But we do it for them as clients and for people that our own families so that we can support them, but also for those we don't meet, meaning the community. I truly believe that our work makes the community safer, whether it's holding people responsible just for simple things like a car wreck, but even on a bigger scale, those corporations and institutions that don't follow basic safety rules, don't have policies and procedures in place to make sure that they have a safe environment. Those are the companies that we go after, and we change how they behave. And we've seen it time and time again through our work. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It is, hearing you talk about that, Brian, it reminds me of some um, legislative efforts where we listened to some testimony and heard questions from legislators. And, um, there's some really good ones out there. And even the really good ones were asking questions that made it clear that they don't understand what it is that personal injury law firms do. Um, there's a lot of counter kind of ideals that are pressed out there called tort reform. And I'm not going to go into that today, but it really hammered home for me the point that we truly are fighting in the shadows. And it's because what we do is complicated. It's David versus Goliath, and we're the David. So we're not on TV. We don't have Flo promoting our and a lizard promoting our business. We still try to advertise. We try to educate as best we can. But you're right. What we do, and there's been a lot of sociological or social studies, I should say, about this, the impact of plaintiff work or personal injury law firm work to helping improve the quality of life for our communities, and not just our communities, but the entire United States, and then by extension, even throughout the world. The work that's been done, all the jurisprudence over the last 200 or 300 years has been really, really important to help make it safer, increase mortality rates. Yeah, I mean, you could go on and on about it. So I thought it was really cool that you honed in on that statement, and I love that. They say that a couple times. In fact, right when Luther's gonna maybe die, or does die, it looks like he dies. He says that comment there. Let me ask you a couple final thoughts about the movies here. And I asked you this just a little bit. Or at least I told you I was going to ask you, but you're a father of four younger kids. One of them's not terribly young anymore. That's probably scary for you. Um, do you think this movie is kid appropriate? And if so, what's the youngest age child that you think you'd be okay or comfortable taking to the movie with you?
On that side of things, the movies, I mean, the most troubling thing for a younger child to me would just be the intensity, but it's not a bloody movie. There's like one death scene that's awesome, but kind of gruesome, where Gabriel takes it in the face and kind of splits his head off an airplane. But I mean, that might be the most bloody part of the movie. So it's not bloody. I mean, there's definitely some violence, and it's intense, but there's not a lot of language in the movie, like we talked about. There's no sex in the movie, or even like sexual innuendo and that kind of stuff. So to me, you have to decide at what point your kids would maybe like not understand the whole movie, but just kind of get an idea of what's happening. Cause I could see under 10 being like really just confused. Like I have no idea what they're fighting. And so they might not enjoy it because of that. But, I have an 8-year old. He just turned 8. And I would take him to this if I felt like he would understand it or be entertained by it because I'm not worried about some of those things.
Yeah.
But I think 10 plus, 12 plus, probably to kind of get the plot to a degree that they would enjoy it.
Yeah.
If your kids get scared easily by, like the submarine scene is super intense, and
Right.
I could see kids getting scared and worried about that. And so that's something you'd have to, want to consider
Yeah.
how easily your kids get scared. I get nightmares about being trapped in a submarine now because they saw this. So, that's kind of how I would base it is how well could they pick up on what's happening to find it entertaining. But there's nothing in there that's too worrying for me for kids around that 10 years old, even down to my son who's 8.
Yeah. I agree. Maybe I'm too desensitized to swear words, but I can't even recall like any like horribly offensive, phrases. There's no F words. I didn't think so. And there are some F words in one. I went back and watched some of the earlier versions, and there definitely is one in I think it's the sixth movie. I was kind of shocked. I was like with my kids, I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't know that was there. Anyway, I do agree with you. I think it's a pretty it's a good movie for kids, and I think 10. I took a 10-year-old, and he was just eyeballs glued to it
Loved
the whole
it.
time. So
Yeah.
but he's almost 11 too. Last thing I want to talk to you about, and Tom, who's our producer back here, if you've got any thoughts on this too, pipe in. I don't know if we can hear Tom if he talks, but we'll relay it. But did either of you catch any mistakes or story threads that were left unresolved? And also, while you're thinking about that, how about Easter eggs? I think there's a ton in here. Any Easter eggs that you want to share with the group? And
There, as far as the Easter eggs, I think I've already talked about the main ones I noticed. It has a callback to the rabbit's foot from 3, the main guy or the guy from 1, Briggs being the son of John Voight, who's the bad guy in 1. Um, there were there was one this one's kind of out there, but at one point he's trapped with Grace, and they're both about to be tortured in like this dungeon looking area, and it reminded me exactly of the Bone Doctor scene. I think it's in 5 where Ilsa saves him for the first time because she's undercover. So that was maybe kind of an Easter egg. Other callbacks, I think they made a mistake with both. So Ilsa died last movie, which was horrible. She's one of my favorite characters. She was in, I think, 3 movies in a row, and they don't usually have a lot of people continue to be in these movies other than Benji, Luther, and Tom Cruise,
right.
and Ethan Hunt. But she was a kind of a mainstay for 3 straight movies, and then she gets killed. It's horrible, sad, and they don't even like talk about. I would have liked at least one mention of Ilsa Faust, who is one of the best characters in the movies, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But so they never mentioned her, totally ignores her. I thought that was
Because he has so many hot girls
and,
following him
and then
around.
they yeah, and then they have, Luther, and it obviously it shows him pretty much dying, but I thought they could have at least had a scene of them talking about him or mourning him, and
I hadn't even thought about that till you said that, and I was like, "That is funny."
like
Everybody just moved on.
him and Benji exchange one look. I know they're busy, but it's like no one asks like how did he die? Like
Even at the end.
so
Yeah.
that part to me, I was like, wish something like that was there and wish they would have mentioned Ilsa Faust, but
Yeah. Well, awesome, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody listening in. And again, this is something that's brought to you by Feller and Wendt. We are a personal injury law firm. We love what we do. We love helping out our clients, as you heard Brian talk about. And we think through the work that we do for our clients, the dedication that we have to them, that we actually help our communities, and each other. And I think that's what, much of life is all about is helping out each other, loving on each other, and trying to do good for one another. So Thank you for listening to what we have to say. We'll bring you more content about other topics from hunting to other movies, shows, entertainment events, concerts, whatever. We've got a whole bunch of stuff slotted for you guys. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. So thanks. Have a great week.